Konnichiwa. Today we're going to go back to Alice's adventures. If you remember, Alice had spotted a white rabbit running along. The white rabbit looked at his watch and said, I'm late, and ran off. Alice called to him to stop, but whether he heard or not, he didn't stop. Arisu tobiagatte, usagi no ato o otta. Tobiagaru is another one of those words of the kind we looked at last week, where a verb is joined to the e-stem of another verb to create a new verb. The first verb here is tobu, which means either jump or fly. In this case, it obviously means jump, since Alice can't fly. And agaru means rise up. So when you put them together, tobi agaru means jump up. And we might notice that agaru here, it's the same kanji as ue, which means up, and agaru is a verb meaning rise up, and we can see that it's related to ageru, which we looked at recently, and that means to give to someone upwards, to raise up toward someone else. But agaru means for something to raise itself up, rise up in itself. So we can see that the two are related. They're both upping verbs. Usagi no ato o otta. Ato means behind or after, and o, which is spelled o-u, means follow. Ato o is a common expression, and it means to follow after or follow behind. But as we've seen before, these positional expressions are always nouns in Japanese. We talk about the on of the table, the under of the table, the beside of the river, and here we're talking about the behind or the after of the rabbit. So Alice followed the rabbit's after or the rabbit behind. This is how we put it in Japanese. Arisu wa tobiagatte, usagi no ato o otta. Alice jumped up and followed after the rabbit. Shaberu usagi o mita koto ga nai. Shaberu means talk or chatter. It's a bit like jabber in English, isn't it? Shaberu usagi, in this case obviously shaberu, the verb, is being used, as any verb engine can be used as an adjective. So shaberu usagi is a talking rabbit, or a talk rabbit, literally. Mita koto ga nai. This is a usage we're going to find very often. Koto ga nai. Koto ga aru. What does it mean? Well, koto, as we know, means a thing, and it means a thing in an abstract sense, a condition, not a concrete thing like a pen or a book. So, mita koto. Mita is modifying the noun koto, isn't it? It's telling us what kind of koto it is. And in this case, miru means see. Mita is see in the past tense. So the koto is actually seeing in the past tense. So mita koto means the fact of having seen. Mita koto ga nai means the fact of having seen does not exist. So what this is saying is, Alice had never seen a talking rabbit. The fact of having seen a talking rabbit does not exist. Shaberu usagi o mita koto ga nai. Alice had never seen a talking rabbit. And of course, in English we always want to make Alice the actor of this sentence, but actually the subject of this sentence, the akar, is not Alice, it's koto. Even if we put Alice into the sentence, we would say Arisu wa shaberu usagi o mita koto ga nai. She would still not be the actor of the sentence. She would just be the topic about which the sentence was speaking of. Alice, the fact of having seen a talking rabbit does not exist. Usagi wa hayaku hashite, kyū ni usagi no ana ni tobikonda. Right, so this is quite a long sentence, and there's quite a lot in it to unpack. I'll tell you what it means to start with. It means the rabbit ran quickly and suddenly jumped into a rabbit hole. So let's look at it bit by bit. Usagi wa hayaku hashite. Now hashiru, as we know, is run. Hayai is an adjective meaning fast or early. In this case it obviously means fast. We know the rabbit wasn't early, don't we? If we want to say the rabbit is fast, we would say usagi ga hayai. If we want to say that its movement is fast, its action is fast, we need an adverb. An adverb is an adjective that describes not an object, not a noun, but a verb. Now, we can turn any adjective into an adverb in Japanese very easily. All we do is we take the regular I ending adjective and use its stem, ku. So, hayai becomes hayaku. Hayai is an adjective describing a thing. Hayaku is an adverb describing an action. So, usagi wa hayaku hashite. The rabbit ran fast. 急にウサギの穴に飛び込んだ. Now, ウサギの穴 means hole. So, ウサギの穴 means rabbit hole. 飛び込む is another one of these compound nouns. 飛ぶ, as we know, means jump. And 込む means to go into something. It's not just like enter. It tends to be to put into, to force into, to do an action into something. So we have a lot of verbs actually which are made up with komu, which is doing an action into something. So tobikomu means jump into, quite simply jump into. So the rabbit jumped into a rabbit hole. But kyu ni, what does that mean? Well, kyu is a noun and it means sudden. And when we put ni onto the end of it, we turn that into an adverb as well. So here we have two kinds of adverbs. We can form an adverb from an adjective by simply using its ku stem. And we form an adverb from a noun by adding ni. And this works with some regular nouns and pretty much all adjectival nouns. So kyu means sudden or abrupt. Kyu ni means suddenly. The rabbit suddenly jumped into a rabbit hole. So the entire sentence, usagi wa hayaku hashite kyu ni usagi no ana ni tobikonda. The rabbit ran fast and suddenly jumped into a rabbit hole. Alice mo usagi no ana ni tobikonda. Alice also jumped into the rabbit hole. Now here we're going to meet a new element that we haven't covered before, and that is the mo flag. Mo is a flag just like wa. Why is that? Well, we know that wa is a non-logical topic marking particle, don't we? Mo is another non-logical topic marking particle. In fact, it's the only other non-logical topic marking particle. So mo marks the topic of the sentence just the way wa does. What's the difference between them? Well, wa, as we know, declares the topic of the sentence. And obviously it can also change the topic of the sentence. If we're talking about one thing and we declare a new wa topic, we have changed the topic of the sentence. Now, mo declares the topic of the sentence as well, but it always changes it. You can't use mo unless there is a topic already current in the conversation. So, the topic of our conversation up to this point has been the rabbit. The rabbit jumped into the hole. And now we're changing the topic to Alice. Alice mo usagi no ana ni tobikonda. When we change the topic with mo, we are saying that the comment about this topic is the same as the comment on the previous topic, the topic we're changing from. When we change the topic with wa, we are doing the opposite of that. We are drawing a distinction between the present topic and the previous topic. So if we had said, Alice wa o-nee-chan no tokoro ni modotta. Tokoro is place and modoru is return. So this would have meant Alice went back to her sister, to the place where her sister was, to her sister's place. If we had said this, that wa would have been drawing a distinction between what the rabbit did and what Alice did. We would be saying, the rabbit jumped into the rabbit hole. As for Alice, she returned to her sister. And you see that in English too. This has the implication that what Alice did was different from what the rabbit did. The rabbit jumped into the rabbit hole. As for Alice, she went back to her sister. This is what wa does. If we use ga, Alice ga o-nee-chan no tokoro ni modotta, we'd simply have been saying the rabbit jumped into the rabbit hole and Alice went back to her sister. But with wa, we are drawing that distinction. We are saying the rabbit jumped into the rabbit hole, but as for Alice, she went back to her sister. Now if we say mo instead of wa, then we are making the opposite point. We are saying that the comment we made on the rabbit is the same as the comment we're making on Alice. The rabbit jumped into the rabbit hole, and Alice also jumped into the rabbit hole. So there are various uses of mo, which we'll look at later, but this is the most fundamental one. It's the topic marking particle that tells us that the comment on the new topic is the same as the comment on the old topic. Ana no naka wa tate ana datta. Alice wa sugu shita ni ochita. Naka means the inside, either the middle or the inside of something. So ana no naka is the inside of the hole. Tate ana. The word tate means vertical or upright. And you can see it's related to tatsu, to stand. So ana no naka wa tate ana datta means the inside of the hole was a vertical hole. It went straight down. Alice wa sugu shita ni ochita. Now shita, as we know, is down or below. Sugu means direct. It can mean soon. In the sense of English, it'll happen directly, it'll happen soon. Or it can mean straight, direct, in the other sense. So sugu shita means straight down, right down, directly down. Alice wa sugu shita ni ochita. Demo, odoroita koto ni yukkuri, yukkuri ochita. And this means, but surprisingly, she fell very, very slowly. Ororoku means be surprised. And odoroita koto is an interesting expression because it literally appears to mean, doesn't it, a surprised thing. But as we've seen with Japanese adjectives of emotion and desire, with things that describe emotion and desire, in Japanese, they shift very easily from the thing that experiences the emotion to the thing that causes the emotion and back. So, odoroita koto here doesn't mean a surprised thing, it means a surprising thing. And koto ni is once again that technique of putting ni after a noun to turn it into an adverb. So, odoroita koto ni ochita. We'll come to yukkuri in just a moment. It means surprisingly fell. She fell in a surprising manner. And what kind of a surprising manner was this? Yukkuri, yukkuri. Now, yukkuri is a very common word that we'll encounter. It's a slightly unusual kind of adverb, the third kind of adverb we're going to encounter commonly in Japanese. The first two kinds, as we see, are the custom of an adjective or a noun with ni. Yukkuri is slightly unusual in that it is fundamentally a noun, which can be applied as an adverb, but we don't need to use ni with it. It stands on its own. Yukkuri, yukkuri, ochita. Yukkuri means slowly, leisurely, at a gentle pace. So, odoroita koto ni yukkuri, yukkuri, ochita. But surprisingly, she fell very, very slowly. So, once again, we've gone through the story a little more rapidly than the first time, and I think we've learned quite a lot. If you have any questions or comments, please ask them in the comments below, and I will answer. And I'd like to thank my gold Kokeshi patrons, my producer angels, who make these video lessons possible. And I'd like to thank all my patrons on Patreon, and I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. Korekara mo yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Class dismissed.